Welcome back to Chris and Retro. Tonight's video is going to be something that's important to me. I think I've gotten a little bit away from that over the last year or so, and really just making sure that not only am I offering support for those that are either onlookers dealing with somebody that's struggling with substance use disorder, or providing helpful tips in your recovery and things like that, and sharing stories to give us examples of how life can fall apart. But I haven't really aggressively been a voice of us. What I mean by us, my community of those that struggle with addiction. And many of us are in recovery and some of us are not. But the things I'm going to share with you tonight, I think what I'm going to try to do is provide some perspective. I apologize. I'm a little under the weather. I've got a 3-year-old and she likes to give me all the funky stuff she walks into. But so with that, we're going to get into the video tonight, and I hope that you find this beneficial as you consider your loved one, or as you're struggling maybe, and hopefully this will be a voice of hope for you as well. One of the incredibly odd things that we struggle with as addicts and alcoholics is people that are abusing drugs or abusing alcohol and find addiction to really be a dominant part of their life. Whether you're in recovery or not, it seems that we're always a collective body of drug addicts, junkies, alcoholics, whatever slang you want to use, whatever stigma you want to put on it. And we're always a statistic, a crisis, anything. It seems as though in most cases, I'm sure you probably can cite, variations to it. So I always realize there's variations, but in most cases, we don't become a person until we die, which is really kind of screwed up. But we're either heroes when we died because we made it on the other side, and it's unfortunate what we did to our bodies during that season caused us other medical conditions, and we pass, and our community comes around and says that was a real hero, or our loved one said, man, he really did live the last part of his life sober and reasonable to be with. Or we're just tremendously loved and missed, gone. It's odd. In another show I used to do called 100 Proof Living, I actually had a guest on there, and I've heard this sentiment multiple times over. So I'm definitely not giving this lady a hard time. I had 2 parents on there that had lost a child, and the mother just said she felt so guilty about the fact that it was almost a sense of relief when her son was gone, because she knew it was inevitable, and at some point she was going to have to deal with that anyway. So the fact that he was gone was almost a relief, but he was loved so much. I don't see memes all over social media or anything else about those that are actively using to say, I love this person so much, you're doing so good, or I really wish you'd get better. There's not a lot of that. I mean, you'll see it, especially if somebody goes missing. So it's always like when the end is near that we all of a sudden now they've got a name. But boy, if somebody overdoses and dies in their 20s, everybody loved them. They were the greatest person ever. But when they were alive, they're the biggest pain in the butt. They're asking them for $20 for this because I don't have money for food, when you know darn well where that $20 is going, or $40 for this tank of gas, or I'm stuck here, I'm stuck there, I'm really sorry, I got jammed up and I just want to get home. That's a big one. I get that a lot, and you'd be surprised if you're a voice in addiction, you're going to get a lot of those types of comments. I get inboxed. It hasn't been so much lately because I've really learned my own boundaries, and it's no. But I was a sucker for that. I mean, and I knew what they were asking for. I knew what was going on, but I'd send people $20, thinking they weren't going to kill themselves with $20, and maybe I could keep connected with them. And that never really seemed to work out that way. So I stopped doing it. But, in our active use, we can be a real pain in the neck. The last thing I did before my last DWI was ask for $40. I got $40. I put money in my tank, and I got booze. I drank so much booze that I barrel rolled a Buick Century. And so it's what we do. And so we're not really a person that is loved or missed or hero or whatever else until after we pass. But being an alcoholic and living in a home with somebody that struggles with addiction as well, I want to be a voice for us tonight. And I want you to understand a little bit about it, not so that you feel bad for us, but maybe this perspective and context can help you. Um, One of the things I saw recently is if you go into a church, and I've had this experience, um, if you are not at a place where you accept that God is going to save you, if you're not in that place where you even A, believe there's a God, and B, accept that he's going to save you, then they don't know what to do with you. Furthermore, if you say yes, maybe with good intention and don't really get yourself together, you're looked at as like, well, you weren't serious, and they get frustrated because in a church setting, if you start to do well, they look at that as a victory story. Their church saved you, that God saved you, or whatever it is that you're involved in saved you. But as soon as you have what a lot of addicts do, and myself included, is have a relapse, and now all of a sudden you're frustrated everybody. I can tell you, my last relapse, I had a bunch of people that were super champions of my recovery journey, very supportive, and they don't give a crap about this channel because of my relapse. And I don't know what to say about that. I'm an alcoholic. I'm as real as a dirty pair of sneakers when it comes to alcohol. I can drink a lot of it. I can drink it fast, slow, whatever you want me to do. And the drunker I get, the less I care about what it tastes like. And I can make all kinds of stupid decisions with it. And one of those decisions is to make a day worth of stupid decisions and then make many more days of even more stupid decisions. So I start to get more desperate. I'm not making light of it. I'm just telling you that's who I am. So I can't drink at all, at all. But what is interesting is that for me knowing that, what I want you to understand, and if you're a loved one watching right now, or you're somebody that's just trying to make sense of all this stuff, I have to continually build through my journey tools that continually put up curbs around not only not using, because not using, maybe I'll pause for a second. When we stop using, that's when everybody does a rallying cry of, yes, they did. And then all of a sudden everybody loves you again. And it's so great. But that's not what being an addict is. I don't think. I think that we put too many milestones on this stuff around substance use, when in actuality it's the behavior all around it that's really more of the toxicity to it. I got a lot of characteristics that I really have to work through with counselors and everything else to ensure that I'm okay and that I don't go back to the bottle. The bottle usually is the last resort for me, even though it becomes a craving along the way. There's many other things that brought me there. So in the church example, if I walked into a church, now I happen to believe in God wholeheartedly. I am a Christian. I made a decision based on my Bible, what it says to do, and that's something I believe, and I do it. I did it. And so for me, salvation is a gift. It's one that was given to me and I accepted it. And so that's how I am. And that's really the person I am. I can go in any church and probably co-sign some of what they say. The issue is that addiction is way more complex to that. And I'm not suggesting that there should be, a second Bible written for addicts. There are some, by the way, they're study Bibles, but, and I'm not saying the truths change because of, addiction or any other, spiritual construct changes because of addiction. It's still the same model. It's just the consistency of behavior can be more challenging, I think, for an addict because we've got something else driving the bus other than just us choosing not to sin or whatever label you want to put on it. One thing that's looked at as that we're stupid. Like, why do you keep choosing to go back? Sam gets this all the time. Why do you go back to the streets? Got a good career, you got a good family, you got great kids. Why do you do that? Why are you making those choices? It's always going to end up bad. Well, no freaking kidding. They look at you like you didn't see that demon in the corner of the room, or you did see it and you just went in there. What are you, stupid? I mean, so the stupid thing we get a lot, and whether you say it or not, man, we know what you think, or weak. That's the other one, which I think is funny because a lot of people that call me weak would not say it to me. And this is not a verbatim macho nonsense. I just know I'm nuts enough that I don't really give a crap about what people think of me. And weak is just a poke in the chest for me. And I'm more than willing to oblige. So I don't think it's weakness, but I do think I'm not wired like some people. And so for that, I have to recognize it and work on myself probably more rigorously than some just to have a normal life. And that's the same thing that, in conversations with Sam and others that I talk to all the time, about addiction, we have to recognize that. And you might not know that. We do see the demon in the room, but a lot happened before we got in there. However, we don't see the bottle or the drug as a demon. And I just wrote about that. I'm going to share this with you. I think I've shared this I'm pretty sure I've shared this on the show before. This is a website that I have. You're more than welcome to look. It's chrisandretro.com. It's got a few things on there. It updates Instagram and stuff like that. But on here, I have my blog. That's probably the number one reason why you'd go there. It has a link to my LinkedIn profile. And I just wrote this piece called Reach for the Sky. It actually started as a social media post, but it came out of the fact that, excuse me, that little Bible burden kids got me. I tell you what, there's nothing more deadly than a 3-year-old that hangs around other 3-year-olds. Anyway, so I was so inspired. It's been a long time since I've had a song that really moved me to tears. And I'll tell you what, man, I'm not ashamed to admit this song crushed me. Now, the song I think was probably written based on a lover. And so this is my point. If we look at addiction, you may look at addiction as a big ominous demon in the room. And we could probably in a recovery see it that way. But when we're in active use, it's just a fraudulent lover. For us, it's a relationship. It's this toxic relationship. It's an abusive, toxic relationship, but it's something that we just wish would work out. And so we go back. Or worse, when it doesn't work out, we're so upset about how it messed up. But yet, when all else is lost, it's the only place that accepts us many times. Now, just as a sidebar on this site, there's other things that I've got out there. So there's other blogs. Stranger in the Valley, that's what I just wrote. This was dedicated to Sam. We the People, they called me a leader. This is actually about my professional history. I'll probably start putting more blogs out there. I slowed down on it for a while, but this is something I'll be putting out more frequently. But anyway, so we go back and we struggle with it. And so here's the worst part about it is the more we go back, the more we have to go to. So the less we have to go to, the more likely we're going to go back, because even though it sucks, it's all we got. It's all we got. It's the only place we can hide. It's the only place that we can get these thoughts out of our head. In that song, it says, find yourself again, find a place somewhere new. Reach for the sky, rise again. And this is where the spiritual piece does matter. So, and churches may not get this, and I wish they did. I honestly think that churches could be a lot more powerful if they understood God the way an addict does. Because for us, as I just described, many of us, myself absolutely included, burned everything else out. Job, relationships, family, kids issues, all this stuff, man. I mean, just my health, reputation, my criminal record. I mean, all of this. We just burned it all down. And so for us to find a place of solace and understand and actually know God and meet him there, it is pretty powerful conversion and understanding of actually who God is. And I think that we get the blessing when we find him of understanding exactly what a spiritual God is. It has nothing to do with the construct of a church at all. It doesn't for me. I mean, I go to church occasionally, but to me, it's more about what happened this morning. What I've prayed about in my journal. I show you 1,000 times on here. What that orange jail Bible I read from literally every morning. It's not just nice words for me. They're guidances. They're ways for me to understand the algorithm of having a more quality spiritual life and understanding that if I live that way, I'm going to have better outcomes. Now, do I live that way all the time? Absolutely not. And in fact, most of the headaches I have is because I live very little like that. And that's part of the problem. One of the things is my language. I try to be careful on here, but I can be a little colorful, especially if somebody irritates me. So context for those that don't understand us. I want to be a voice for us so that you understand. I'm not asking you to feel bad for us. Please do not. Because one thing we can be, especially in active use, is highly manipulative. Some more than others. I would say, and that's a people problem. That's not, addiction. But I think that I just want you to understand more, because in that place, you'll know the stages of what you're dealing with. You got somebody that's been there for a while. They've come out the other side. They're in recovery. Just because they're in recovery and put a bottle down does not mean they're healed. So if you're rallying around somebody as you were their victory song, you were a lifeboat and you helped them get so they can have some clarity, stay alongside them, because they're going to need that support throughout the rest of their life. I don't ever, I'm 52 years old. I'll never wake up again not an alcoholic. You know how frustrating that is for me? That just flat out pisses me off, because I don't like that. I got controlling tendencies. Last thing I want to be is controlled by that, but it does seems like that's what controls me. And it is just maddening. Now I'm thankful. I'm sober, recovering. Long-term recovery always works out that way. You're doing well, that type of thing. But what I am honest with myself about is who I am and what I have the potential of becoming again if I'm not diligent and I don't do the work that I know is massively important for me to stay where I'm at. I think that, so I'm going to shift a little bit now, and this is more for my community, those of us that have had these struggles. I'm seeing a lot of people in my community losing their minds over this election. And for this, I just want to put a little context. We don't need the federal government to make our life better. It's not noble, and it's not helping your recovery to lose your mind over something that you may or may not have lost based on whoever the president is that's in office. This president, I think, is just making the moves he always said he would and reduce our reliance on the federal government and have it be more state oriented. So all these programs are losing. I'm betting they're all going to come back in the state. It's just, it takes this pause to make that work. I hope it does for some of the programs. I just don't know, but what is it going to do for me to get on social media and lose my freaking mind over and over again? And that's one of the things I have a hard time with a lot of the liberal mindset, is because this happened last time too. You lose an election and all of a sudden everybody's screaming, everybody's losing their mind, and we'll show you and we'll show you that. You know what has happened? I've been a conservative thinking man since I was born. It's just how I was born. It wasn't indoctrinated in me. I just see things that way. Probably more, I don't know, libertarian in the fact that I think the Republicans grab onto religion a lot more and manipulate that as well. So for me, I'm just kind of like, I think what I think and I live with the way I live just based on what I think makes sense for me. And so that's just kind of how I live. But any of this stuff can easily derail my recovery. And so circumstances, we can't get caught up in that stuff. And I made sure I called this out to not make everything a political conversation. But boy, for those of us in recovery, please do not get so crazed about about the Republican president or a Democratic president or anything. Don't be too happy about who you have if that's the person you vote, and don't be too sad if it's not somebody that you wanted. When I was working for Johnson & Johnson, one of the things they told me, actually it was before that, I was considering trying to find a job there, and I met a guy. I saw a guy that worked for them, and I asked him. I said, "So I'm considering about, applying and seeing what's up at J&J." And I said, "What would you tell me?" And this is the only thing he told me about J&J. He said, "The only thing I can tell you is that don't get." They say there's no gray in J&J was one thing he said, and the second thing he said was, "Don't get too. If you like your boss, don't get too used to it, and if you don't like your boss, don't worry about it too much, because none of them stay that long." And boy, was he right. There's a lot of pressure in those jobs, and they either get promoted or pushed out. And that's how it goes, and it doesn't last long. So even in that circumstance where you're working every day with somebody, there's really no point in going crazy over that. So in addiction, we don't have that luxury. For us, we've got to stay close to the game that we got to play here, whether you're using or not, whether I'm drinking or not, whether Sam is using or not. Our job is to do everything that we're supposed to be doing to make sure that we stay strong. We need to find a way to be as self-reliant as possible to remain focused on our dreams, but recognize we have support that is willing to plug in, and there's many people out there with the energy to walk beside us. Now, my personal opinion, excuse me, and I do try to offer grace towards others that have different spiritual context. I understand that. I'm not debating any of that. I'm just not. I can tell you for me what God has become and what he is. I don't know how I would live without it. I don't I would not be sober before you. You know, I thought 2016 is probably 16 because 2017 started to have some victories throughout it, but 2016, 17-ish was probably the worst years of my life. Um, it just I burned everything down. And it was all starting to pay some prices, and it was pretty obvious that it was all coming to an end. I was losing everything. I was coming up on homelessness. I didn't have a penny to my name. Everybody was hating me. My reputation sucked. I wasn't even strong anymore. So it's like, I couldn't fight my way out of a paper. Well, I could fight my way out of a paper bag, but I was in rough shape. I mean, it was just a hot freaking mess. And I always looked at that as the worst year. I can tell you the toughest year I've had was 2024. This was with no question the toughest year I've ever had in my life. And it was because of a lot of competing priorities. I've got a good life. Things have come back. And so those require a lot of responsibility. And I've made commitments I'm going to deliver on. At the same time, our personal life, because of addiction, has had some real big challenges. And so you've heard a lot about it on the show. Not the total picture, believe it or not. I mean, as much as I've shared with you guys, I've only given you guys snippets of what this year has been. It's been a freaking nut house. And so, we're coming in at 25 with a little hope, especially with the progress that we made, to get back on track. But when it comes to God and this whole situation, I mean, God is key for me. And I think he can be for pretty much anybody. That's, to me, the greatest strength of spiritual awakening in your recovery why choose anything else than the God that made the earth you stand on? I don't, for me, I just don't, it doesn't, I know how strong my addiction is. So I really need something super powered. And that to me is probably the best deity out there. For one, it removes me as a deity, which is really important as well. So guys, in this video, what I was hoping to do is to do a few things here. One was to have those that look at us, me, Sam, my community of those struggling with addiction. I wanted you to have some context about who we are. We're not dumb. We know it probably won't do well, but our fraudulent lover calls us a lot, and they're still real pretty. We have good memories together. It's not all bad. And let me tell you something, the further you're away from that lover addiction, for me, the bottle, I forget an awful lot of really dumb things I did and a lot of stuff that really hurt, because my tape, if I'm not careful, will play for me all the good reasons why I even started touching it in the first place, and all the good times I had, and the release in my mind of pain and struggles I have with anxiety and depression. So it is a fraudulent lover for us, even though we know that it could possibly cause us some damage, but we really don't consider that when we make these small compromises. And it really is not. I don't ever go and grab a bottle and chug it and start getting drunk. I've usually made a lot of emotional decisions in my life that have created some chaos that has the potential of being a problem, and generally around anger. And usually it's because I'm afraid of something. The situation's getting out of control, so I'm afraid that it's out of control and it's going to do something that's going to hurt me. So then I get angry because I fight through fear with anger, and it's just about who I am. And anger always has an action associated with me. It's not lip service, or it's usually got something behind it. And when that happens, I screw up my life every time. That is usually the types of behaviors that happen before I would do a relapse. And so I've learned the diagnostic. I can hear the bell going off on the analyzer saying, you got some problems coming up here, Chris. Get it back locked in. If you guys get a chance, take a look at the blog post. The song in there, I would highly encourage you. The song is about, I think, a broken relationship. But if you look at it if you have struggled with addiction, hear that song and listen closely to the words. To me, it was tremendously moving, because it says I'm finding myself again. And that is absolutely true. In your recovery, your victories are coming from progress. It's not necessarily because you've got 1 year, 2 year, whatever chip you got flying through the air at you, or how much water a church sprinkles on you. Those are different contexts and different reasons why you do those things. It doesn't feel real good when you're having a dark night and a bottle is an option for you, or drugs are an option for you. So understand that the victories you're having, make sure you look backwards at all the wins you've had when you're facing a lot of stuff, because it's real easy to constantly look at what you got to do more, what you need to do next, and have all that be the things that are in your mind all the time. Take a look backwards. Look at where you've come from. For me, man, I find a lot of victory and a lot of gratitude in saying, man, I really am making some progress here in this life. And I find it encouraging, especially when things are getting a little bit dark for me. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Share this video with somebody that might not really understand us. Hopefully I've given enough context for what we're all about. There's a lot more. We're nuts and we're crazy, and we'll do anything we need to when we're in active use to get what we've got to get to make sure that we're okay. And that becomes an hour by hour decision a lot of times when we're really heavy using, and it's just not an easy life. I'm not asking for pity, and I don't think any of us do. Well, some do, but generally speaking, this is not a pity conversation, and we're not stupid. It's a fraudulent lover, and we really liked her, and she reminds us of all the good times, and our minds allow us to buy that line of crap and forget the actuality of how toxic that relationship was. Thanks, guys. I'll be traveling this week, so I won't have a lot of videos that are out here, but between now and the next time we talk, I'm going to stay out of trouble, and I hope you do too.